Oh, oh my.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're live with Neve.
All right, all right. It is Friday. Hot as hell here in the New York area. I hope everybody's having a great day. I know I am. It is Friday. I don't have any great plans. I hope you do. I'll live vicariously through you guys. We're here to talk some rock and roll today. We're here to talk all kinds of stuff. I've got a great guest on. I think you're going to like today's show. I'm looking at the news before we get going. First thing, I'm looking at the news, and there's really nothing like really good even to report. Let's see, Elton John, this is kind of good news. Elton John gave Britney Spears her first #1 hit since 2011. And then they have a quote below with a question mark that says, beginning of a comeback. I imagine there's faxes burning up everywhere from her publicist. And here's some interesting news with all the monkeypox news we've been getting. Now we're being hit by a tomato flu. And I don't know, it looks icky. It's not good. I don't know if it has anything to do with... all I'm going to say is if you don't practice any high-risk sex, you don't have anything to worry about monkeypox. So now that we covered all the great news, we got the usual parties complaining, and I'm not going to get into that. We're here to talk about a guy named Johnny Z. And I've got Johnny A, who's going to be joining me. John Albino is a friend of mine. He's a musician. He's a father. He's a music store owner. He's an incredible engineer and talent. Just an all-around cool guy. And one of my friends, a dear friend, worked for him for a long time. And John's just been around the block a lot. He's seen it all. Excuse me. He's a good guy, and the world needs more good guys. So without further ado, John Albino. How are you, man?
Hey Neil, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How about you? You're in there coiling cables, I see.
Well, I'm in engineering right now. I'm getting ready to get a couple things done tonight, and just taking time to get into this interview and talk to you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yeah, it has.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I guess rock and roll is it's a New Jersey thing. There's hotbeds, you got New Jersey with our proximity to New York. And tell me a little bit. I mean, you've grown up here. Just give us a quick thumbnail of how you got from there to here, and then we'll segue right into Johnny Z.
Well, basically, look, I've been playing. I've been playing since I was 12 years old. I won't give you all the crazy details, but
That's fine.
By the time I was 14 or 15, I was really sure that this is what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a musician. I was also, I was very blessed. I was also an athlete. But when that kind of thing came around,
Mm-hmm.
my father was the guy who had he was very wise and told me, he goes, well, listen, because baseball started being it really became a big part of my life. I don't know if you remember, I'm 6'3" and pretty lanky. So
Right.
So, but
You look good on stage.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing.
And you had the hair too. I mean, I've seen some of your pictures. You're a rock god, for sure.
Yeah, we did it all. But my father was the one who said, "Well, look, keep it in mind, man." He said, when you play sports, even when you play professionally, it's a seasonal thing, and he said you don't play all year. And he said, also, too, there's a time limit. He said, but you could play guitar for the rest of your life. And, well, here we are. And,
Many guitars later too.
well, it's funny. It does kind of sum it up. But, I went through, the bars even at, like 13 and 14 years old. My father kind of supervised that whole situation. And then as time moved on, by the time I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
I played in professional bands. And when I left high school, I was actually accepted to Berklee College of Music, and I had a place to live. I was going to live at my uncle's house in Massachusetts. It was all set up, and at one point, we just decided that you know what, I think I just wanted to play. I was already playing, so I continued, and I gave up Berklee, and I went to college locally. I went to Kane for a little while,
Okay.
and I just kept moving. And that was basically it. One thing led to another, and then everything from records, playing with a lot of my heroes, to touring.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came out of all that, got married, and of course that all stopped. No, I'm kidding. Anyway,
Oh no, I know though. It's certainly I'm like you. I have three kids, and it certainly changes the whole equation drastically.
well, like I said, and then at the same time too, when I decided that I kind of loved teaching when I was home and I wasn't playing out. I loved
Mm-hmm.
teaching to be a passion, so I kind of capitalized on that, and then
Great.
the studio was built, and it kept growing and growing and growing. So here we are today, in an amazing facility, which I believe at one point we're gonna be doing a big kind of interview on the place.
Yes,
Um,
yes. Actually, I'm glad to finally have you, catch you. You're often seen in the wild, but hard to kind of you keep moving. I know you're a busy guy, and for those of you who don't know, John also runs a full teaching studio and has a bunch of kids coming in and out of there. And he's a lovely den mother. Look at him. He's just he's sitting here. You want to send your kid to this guy? I'm kidding you, man.
and yet they still do, Neil. They still do.
No kidding. They still do. But what can I tell you? I'm going to have to come in and take lessons from you, because if you can teach a drummer to play, you can teach anybody. I'm
Okay.
kidding. I I've played for a long time.
I just don't know if that's an insult or compliment on either end, but
I know. I think it's a self-deprecating remark, because I'm pretty sure I can play the blues, but I can't play like guys like you. And I've been playing drums since I was a kid, and that was by osmosis, and then a lot of lessons and a lot of practice and a lot of gigs. But I'm not a natural on a guitar. If I was by now, I would have been showing signs of it. All I show signs of is getting my guitarist friend to tune my 12 string for me. I'm being facetious, but any rate. So you're here now. You've got this great business. You're making records too with your own band, and that's
yeah.
all seems great. You've been out playing gigs. I can't imagine why you're hard to track down.
Well,
Just
that's the thing, yeah, yeah. And so we've come to a point where I've got people who are really interested in what we're doing and what I'm doing, and looking to now make more time for not only the
right.
band, but I have to come out with a third record, of course, and then also too, I've got other artists who are asking me basically at this point.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half ago, they were being very nice to me, saying this is going to be great, this is going to be great, and now you're kind of getting like, what are we doing here? And so
Right.
we're looking to kind of get myself back into where I used to be, which was the songwriting
Mm-hmm.
and of course recording,
Sure.
getting that back in, because we're very blessed because the demand is there,
Mm-hmm.
and also too, Bulletproof is getting really really busy when it comes to recording and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, as of today, like I said, we had this kind of slotted out, and I wasn't going to book
Mm-hmm.
something, because I really want to talk to you today about everything that's going on, and we're gonna have some talks about Johnny Z,
Mm-hmm.
his life, his amazing, extraordinary life. But I want to take the time. But that's where we are right now. Like I said, we're sitting in engineering right now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's comfortable. And right now it's silent. There's no noise. It's
I
great.
know, it's always nice, isn't it? Having some silence.
You know, I mean, being in a recording studio, it's always silent anyway. But so when nobody's playing, it's really, really quiet. So,
Yes. I don't know if you've ever had the chance to go into an anechoic chamber. They have one up in Boston. Have you ever been in that thing?
no, and I don't know.
Very, very disconcerting. You hear your heartbeat, you hear the capillaries in your brain. It's a very bizarre feeling. I can see why people get like kind of whacked after you go in there for a while. It's,
I'm not sure. I'm not really sure that, and I don't want to get go too far in the weeds. I'm not really sure the body's actually meant for that kind of quiet.
I tend to agree with you. I know I didn't. It was kind of just bizarre, but going on. Tell me, how long ago did you meet Johnny? Because I know that's a starting point just for me as a fan. What point did you know what was happening with him? How long have you been friends and all?
Early '80s.
Wow, you were there right in the. That was a good time to be alive musically.
It was the early '80s, and he was a Wall Street guy, very smart guy, very,
Hmm.
and he had a love for music, and you know he basically ready to make a move, and he did. And what was really funny is a lot of guys didn't take him serious. I mean, even back then,
Hmm.
but I mean, I take that whole situation serious. Um,
Right.
but listen, I kept in contact with. Now, as time went on, as the years went on, we became much closer friends. I would see him from time to time. We'd see each other at parties, or I'd be invited to parties, or
Right.
even kind of situation we went on vacation together, and really got to
Oh,
know.
okay.
And he was very, like I said, he was an extremely smart man. He was a very funny guy too. He was just he.
I've been watching some of his videos. I was trying to. I gotta kind of figure out how to talk like him. Yeah, I gotta send you $1,500. You get in your minivan and you go rent a trailer and you're gonna come here to New Jersey and I'm gonna put you up, okay? Or I'll make millions of bucks. What a great. He really came across. I wish I'd have met him. He seems like such a character, you know. And I can.
But he
I liked his one of the things he said. He sent him the money that night. And what I liked about the guy, I really do wish I'd have met him. He seems like a real character, and he kept the key to the. He had the wherewithal. He has the key from that Winnebago that they drove over, or not a Winnebago, a U-Haul. And I just like that, you know. It's kind of
well, he had how he started. Where I mean, everybody knows that he was at the Route 8 market, and he had a record store. He had a record store,
right.
and that's how he started. And he had some friends of mine that he had brought in. He brought in a band like TT Quick,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and he had a vision. And you know what?
For sure.
Well, he was driven, and he had a vision. And look at there's nothing that could be taken away from Johnny. He made it.
No, and apparently he had a great wife. That any wife who says I'm going to give $1,500 to some band to drive from LA. That's a woman, man. I mean, they had a really good thing going, from what I could tell, and I thought that was fairly cool. Started their. I made a couple of notes, and Rock and Roll Heaven, I guess, was the place. It was at a flea market originally. Um, Amazing. Really, to me, it's quite fascinating because heavy metal now it's just it's enormous. The amount of money generated by a Metallica tour is, I don't know. I wish I was getting a few points, but I'm not.
Or it's funny too because it's not even heavy metal anymore. Like he he basically invented thrash metal.
Right, with Anthrax and all those guys. I had a friend who was into that. He was a young guy and he used to come record at the studio. First kid who ever turned me on to NWA. He was like 18 years old. And all of a sudden, I've got F the Police cranking through the monitors, the 813Bs, and Jeff Arthur was running in, and JNR and I were kind of cracking up. But at any rate, moving on, I can imagine that, working with those guys. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I went off and running. I'm down the road like a dog chasing a tire. um, I
Well, yeah, he was a man with a vision, and he kept growing it and growing it. He started his own record company. It's called,
mm-hmm,
he started his own management company called Crazed Management, and
mm-hmm,
listen, he capitalized on the opportunities. He knew what he was doing. I would say for the most part, he made mostly all the right decisions. And you know what? That's an extraordinary man that can do these.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the rest is history, as one of his drummers, that Lars guy, said. I read some of the quotes from the guys in Metallica, and there's a lot of love there. And you can tell, even seeing how he handled with really very gracefully when they had to move on with different management and stuff. Usually that turns into such a hatred, and people are pissed off for years, and then you realize at a certain point in life to just stay mad over something you were in a band 20 years ago, even if there was money involved. It's
Look, you know what it is? What happens a lot of times with this kind of situation when you talk about bands like bands is management and bands, and just like bands themselves, sometimes years and years and years and years, they outgrow themselves.
right.
And I believe, look, Johnny and I have had some in-depth conversations on, what had happened with who and where, and listen, he was very, 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 very to the point. He said, look, sometimes you guys we outgrow ourselves, and it's time to move on. Does not mean that we still can't be friends. Listen,
Right.
sometimes you disagree. Look, there was never a time when I constantly always agreed with Johnny. He never always agreed with me either.
Right.
But that didn't change anything. And when you look at, even like when you're talking about now there's Tim. Now, like for instance, years later, now we had MOD. MOD did their last year.
Right.
They did the whole record here at Bulletproof. Came out great. Eric Rachel was the engineer. And Tim, when you speak to Tim, Tim's the guitar player. Tim will sit there, and he has nothing but great things to say about Johnny and Marsha. Marsha was an extraordinary woman also. They went through thick and thin together, those two.
Right.
And there was really much love between them. They had much love between them. They loved their children. It was really, really, really great. And that some of their children are to this day are still dealing with the music industry, but those two were a great match. And again, when I speak to people, even when Danny Spitz was playing in John's Crossing, Danny had nothing but great to say about Johnny. So here it is years later, and listen, you're going to always have those. Where did that guy come from, and why did he say that kind of stuff? That stuff's going to happen all the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but when you're looking at the bigger picture, like that whole bigger picture, everybody that knows him or dealt with him, and I would say the majority, because again, you're going to have that fractional stupid, where I call them the stupid people. And,
Absolutely.
But everybody will tell you that he's just, when you talk to Michael Lago, and he'll say the same thing. John, it was just an amazing thing. We all, we miss him. Fortunately, in his final days, I did not get to see him. It actually had come into a big surprise to me when I knew he wasn't feeling great. But listen, I've got great memories with him. We shared a lot of things. John's Crossing was a big factor that we shared. At one point or another, one of the funny stories about him and I were, he had basically called me out of nowhere, in the sense that we were talking here and there, but he called me in the mid, I guess it must have been around 2013, 2014, and he just said, "Listen, I'm looking to put on a show. I want to do something, and I'm not really sure, but I want to help out. I want to help out with the people." This is years after Sandy,
right?
And I said, "Okay." I said, listen. I think that's a great idea." And he said to me, "Yeah," he goes, "but somehow you're involved." And I went, "As in playing? What is it?" And he said, "I'm not really sure." And he said to me, and he was just an extraordinary guy. He goes, "I had a dream," and he said, and I was at a big show, and he said, and your face popped up, and I said, "Okay." And I go, "What was my face doing?" He goes, "I'm not sure. You're part of the whole situation." So
You were looking to see what the check was.
well, yeah. Where's my check? Anyway,
Right? How do you graciously?
he wound up. This is the funniest story because it goes to show what kind of guy he is, man. Where he had vision. He winds up making. Are you ready for this? Now remember, I'm a guitar player. So
Right.
no matter singing, guitar player, producer, writer, when it comes right down to it, it's like, what do you do? I play guitar. And so he made me a production concert coordinator.
Okay.
Where I'm saying to myself, I hated these guys anyway. So he makes me this production concert coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
A show together, and we had and it was a great show because we had so many wonderful bands that came together for us. A lot of bands made. What was nice about the show was a lot of bands made an incredible comeback
Mm-hmm.
show. So we had we had Anvil on the show.
Okay.
We had Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Oh, we had Twisted Sister, and then we had one of my most favorite bands ever is Rods, and
Right.
it was really something. And what happened was, and also, what was really nice about it was TT Quick actually finished the night off. They were the last band, and what was really nice around that time that we were all dealing together. I was dealing with the band, and we actually started making plans
Mm-hmm.
as a band, and I got to play with them that night, and then we just kind of kept moving along. But it was really nice. The night was such a success,
Mm-hmm.
and what happened was, from that point forward, Johnny kept just putting me on shows, and what would
Right.
happen? And then he started really rolling the dice. Neil, he starts putting me on shows where somebody else was doing the show, and then 72 hours before the show, things were going wrong. And then
Mm.
72 hours before that, I turned out to be the guy from 24.
He was
So,
using. Yeah, he was going to use you to be the advanced man and all. Right, that's fun.
yeah. So we were doing that kind of thing. And then I had gotten an offer to do production coordination with a team for Major League Baseball.
All right.
And during that time, lines got crossed between the coordination people and basically the Doubleday family, and it turned into a complete horror.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah. So what happened was I decided. Now remember, we're talking about John. So there's a point to be made here. So at that point, I decided, being a production concert coordinator, the problem that you have with that is if you do a great job, nobody cares. If you do a terrible job, you are put to the cross.
Yes.
So I decided that I figured that, you know what, I'm going to get out.
It's like anything. It's a high risk business, and if
Well,
things
well, no,
you just
that's-
hit it. It's like Bill Clinton had
Yeah,
his
but-
8 years, nothing went wrong. He balanced the budget, no wars. He skated through that. It was great, and
Well, you know what? It was great because I got out, on top. Like
yes.
we were.
Excuse me.
So Johnny and I were at his house. At that time, he was in Pennsylvania. He was in New Hope. So he asked me he actually said to me, I said to him, I don't want to do this anymore. He wasn't really happy about it. And then
Mhm.
once we came to grips with what was going on, he actually said to me, what is next for John Albino? And I said, I really want to start, a record company, a Christian record company. And I want to start working with a situation that I'm putting together at the time was called The Crossing.
Mhm.
And what happened was I explained it to him. I went home that night. So, I drove home. So to end this, by the time I got home, I got an email. I still have it. It's adorable. I get this email from Johnny. It says, Marsha and I want in. So we started this, we started working, and this is where we get to the situation of Johnny Z and John's Crossing. Because you look in the book, and by the way, everyone,
There it is.
book.
Okay, Heavy Tales.
Listen, it's a great book, and I'll tell you what, Johnny really did it right. It's an easy reader.
Hmm.
The stories are amazing.
I read through it just at your office when we were hanging out that day. We were waiting, and I read a good bit of it, and it is a great book. I recommend it for anybody out there. I'll buy that one because I want to really read it and digest it rather than just tear through it.
Well, it was funny too because if you look at the book, Neil, you probably know that the last chapter is actually really dedicated to us, John.
Yes, that's right.
What happened was Johnny did something that he hadn't done in years. Um, he he came in and he really stayed really close to the record. I mean,
Right,
he was staying here. He was staying in Jersey. He was staying at my house. He was staying at the hotel, which is right next door. And
right,
he would stay in the recording studio. Now, if you know the book,
right.
you know that that's when he did that years ago, like where he got so engulfed in and he would stay in the recording studios, and he would hang. He was. I mean, we have, and it's funny. I sent you a bunch of really funny pictures, and there's actually a picture where I'm here and he's like this, and his face we're like this. He's actually laying down on the ground, and I wound up sneaking up on him. And before I could take a picture of him, he opened his eyes.
Oh man.
So it's like there's some really really cool shots. But that was the last record.
Hmm.
It was the last record of his career. It was nice too because that record he was so close to. He had spoken to me, and what was really kind of sweet about it, and I just think it's because where the record was coming from. He had said to me it was one of his 10 favorite records that he ever put out. It is a Christian record, but if you know the record, it's more like Led Zeppelin.
It's very good. I've heard you play it, and I enjoyed it very much. It was excellent. You have a great band, and the recordings of it I heard while you were birthing it because I was over at JR's all the time. He'd be like, "Hey, I got something cool." He'd have his little brown box. You got to listen to this, man. I could just see him cruising down my front walk, and I was like, I told him, I said, they could sell this anywhere. It's good stuff. The lyrics are uplifting, but they're not like overtly churchy or anything. I mean, they're not preachy. They're none of that. They're uplifting, and I think you made a phenomenal record. And I don't have to give a caveat. It's pretty good for a Christian album. I put that up against anybody's. If anybody ever says that to me, that Christian music sucks, I'm just going to give them a copy of yours and say, "Oh, listen to this and tell me what you think," because that is a tremendous record.
We feel really good about it. What Johnny did like about it, and like I said, I want to keep it that close to him, is what he liked
Sure.
about the record was that the words were not. And listen, there's nothing against the other Christian bands. I get all that, but
Sure. No,
this
everybody
record,
does what they do.
yeah, this record was not. I love God, God loves me. This record was about testimony,
Hmm.
and what's nice about even the secular world, people dig testimony when people are talking about their own lives and what they've been through because
Sure.
they can relate to it. So what happens is Johnny loved the fact that the record was a testimony to everything that I've been through,
Hmm.
and where when I came up short, this is where I found everything. So he dug that a lot, and
I think that is something about your song that is a real treasure about it, is that somebody who's out there and they're on the fence and they're morally ambiguous about it, they may not know what they're hearing, but if they hear the song, it's not, and I don't believe in subliminals, it's about people hearing and they get, you are garbage in, garbage out. And if you're listening to something, it doesn't matter whether it's called Christian music or whatever it's called. It's just good music. And your lyrics, like I said, I think you're the best Christian band I've heard, and I say that not kiss your butt or anything. You're a friend of mine, but I wouldn't say it if I didn't really mean that. There's a lot of Christian bands out there, and they're great, tons of them. But what I've heard out of you is just it's different. It stands on. It's got its own sound to it, and that's worth something. I mean, you don't sound like everybody else at all.
well, the thing is that we went out, and what's really fun is ironically,
Hmm.
when you're listening to the stuff, it comes from the first part of my life, meaning that I was a sinning, girl crazy,
Sure.
rock and rolling,
You're a heathen, son.
right.
I'm kidding you.
I was definitely a heathen, and what happened was when you look, and it's funny, and I don't want to get too far into this, but even when you look in the Bible and you look at the apostles, they were the biggest screw ups you've ever
Oh
seen.
yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
they were the guys who, remember, they were
Hmm.
the guys that went to death
Right.
saying that, listen, Jesus is the guy. So to
Right.
think that, when you look at it, it wasn't the holier than thou people that God put himself behind. It was the people that he sat there and said, you are the worst of the worst, but you know what? I choose you and you're going to change things. So when you look at it, it's great that you have these Christian artists who come, from they come from complete Christian background. And we
Right.
did, I came from the dark, dirty streets of hell. And
Yeah.
here's that, Johnny seen that and Johnny knew that. And when he seen what was coming out of the music, he felt it was real. That was the difference. He felt
Well, that's always important because I love sincerity in all things. Be sincere to your friends. Be sincere in your music and your art, and really give a damn about it. And I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to put a quarter in my jar. My poor girlfriend. She's gonna be wealthy. Um, well, how long did it take to make the record overall? Because I remember Jr. was on it. It had to be a year or so, at least.
it took about a year and a half.
That's what I
Um,
thought.
because I had made a quick something happened in my life, and then that was really an amazing thing. I never asked the Lord for a favor, and one time I asked him for a favor, and he showed me that he actually did it for me. I was already a believer. I was already a saved man, but I've always asked for strength to get through things, and
Hmm.
so that kind of thing spoke through the lyrics. But then at one point, he showed me a miracle, and
Hmm.
well, I am now indebted. So
Well,
so about a year and a half later, that record was done. I mean, there was like stuff in, prior to that. I know that we did one. We never did any really true cover songs, but prior to that, somebody asked us to do a cover song. We actually, being a big fan of Led Zeppelin, we actually did Ramble On. Jr. just freaked out.
I actually I have a copy of that. Interestingly enough, because I have all the stuff, and I've been going through it for months. My Jr. had his own way to do everything taxonomy wise. So it's easy to follow through. He was pretty good about taking notes and stuff, and I can occasionally hear his Jr. voice in my head when I'm reading something that cracks me up. I don't know. I miss the heck out of him. It always comes up when we talk about him. He was such a great guy, and I really miss the hell out of him.
Yeah, he was.
Not to be too somber.
Well, like I said, at the end, really at the end was when he really started. When I would say, like, he was always really around to where he wanted to be, what he wanted to do, and
Right.
and my last recording with him was, I just think it's I think it sent him over the edge.
Oh no, probably. Gosh, no. But no, if he'd have died right there in the room with you, he would have been a happy man. Because we all got to go sometime, and I accept my fate. I don't worry about it. I don't live in fear, and I don't I don't commiserate in my head. For anybody out there, don't be just walk the walk. Do whatever you do. I don't care if you're a Christian or not, but whatever you do, be true to it, and don't be simplest things. Just be nice to people. God, so hard about that. I
Well,
mean,
like I said, Johnny. Getting back to Johnny, Johnny was an amazing man, extraordinary man while he was here. We wound up doing one of the last. I'm not sure, but it had to be at least one of the last interviews uh, that he did, and he did such an amazing interview with our show here, Foster Club,
right.
and it came out so good, man. And he wound up calling me about a half hour later when everything settled down, and he just said to me, "By the way," he goes, "that was one of the best interviews I've ever done," and
Great.
nice, and it was just great to have him. And like I said, we miss him. I wish I could have seen him.
Right.
Really truly at the end. But I do miss him. We shared many things. He felt that at one point that spiritually I brought him closer to God
Hmm.
because he hung out with me. He hung out with me. he knew I
Right,
did.
he was staying with you, and it's a very, it's always turns people in the family when you make a record. You're together that, however long it takes. You get great friendships from that.
Yeah, and he's seen. He would ask many questions, which was great.
Hmm.
I remember coming up with songs, and what happened was I would always run them by him first. So we basically would do a FaceTime almost every morning, and
Hmm.
so when I would come up with a song, I mean, I remember, I mean, he was so inspiring. I would come up with a song, and I would just start playing it with my guitar and
Right.
singing it, and he would get so melancholy, and he would get really watery and teary eyed.
Emotional songs,
Yeah,
yes.
and it was really something to see a guy, because look, I know his history, and it's amazing to see a guy like that where he was really at the end, he was really catering closer to more of, I don't want to say gospel, but more of praise worship. He
Hmm.
he really liked praise worship songs. And by the
Hmm.
time we got to the second record, man, the second record started getting heavier and heavier. And but he was really, he was really focusing in Johnny's. He was really focusing into praise and worship. A lot of times he couldn't go to church, but he would tune into church. You
Hmm.
know, we would
Right.
get on the internet. And, he would talk about it, and again he would ask questions.
Hmm.
I know that when it came to God and his beliefs, that he was definitely in the right place, and
Hmm.
just a great career.
Right.
Um, and like I said,
It's a life well lived, I think, by
yeah,
far.
oh, absolutely. And
Really.
we
Um,
we all miss him. Once Johnny and Marcia were gone, there was, on that side of music and that side of people, to be perfectly honest with you, there was nothing left for me.
right.
Uh, I stayed where I was, and I stayed very focused. I
Hmm.
stayed here, and John's Crossing now is actually doing a lot more. We're playing festivals, and
Right.
people. And what's funny is, people half the time we're playing it usually takes about halfway through a set to even realize that we're a
Absolutely.
Christian band.
Well, good music is good music in any genre, and I know it when I hear it. It's like they said in Goodfellas when Hesh said to the guy, "I know, I know what I hear it when I hear it, but that ain't it." And he's
Yeah,
like, I forget it was Christopher was presenting some music to him, asking his professional opinion, and we all know you can hear a song, and you can tell with artists sometimes. I have a guy that was I learned a lesson. I had a character come into my studio once, didn't have much money, and he came in and he said he was going to rent a bunch of time to do a record. And he's a very humble guy. And he came in and we made a hell of a record. And we became great friends. Sorry he passed away. God rest his soul. But it was one of those things where you just learn you never know about somebody's talent. He had me. By the time we were done, I would contract all the musicians for him. And, we'd talk like you were talking to him. I'd have the best players I could possibly get. I'd make sure everybody got treated good, made a little money. We all were eating, and it's what life's made out of. That's what Jr. Him and we keep going back to him. People, if you don't know who Jr. He's my former keyboard player and one of my best friends. He's the engineer at John's, and he worked for my wife's studio. And all I could say is, great guy, and we miss him too. He always comes up in my thought process. Just watching you sitting there, I can. It's like when you've recorded someplace, you can sit here and watch video like we shot, and it's just like you're sitting there. I mean, it's a wondrous age we live in. COVID really did a lot of terrible things and killed a lot of people, but for those of us in the music industry, it's like opened up a whole new world of collaboration with people. It blows my mind.
absolutely. And once again, folks, please, you can still get this book. It's a great book.
Right? So
Right? Every
we're
time
gonna go to we're out of here. I'm gonna play a little Metallica to ride out of here, people. Or actually, I'm gonna play something that was put together that's pretty heavy. John, you're always a pleasure, and yes, we need to do. Your September. You have you booked playing a lot. You got a lot
we
of
are
gigs.
booked, and we have a lot of sessions coming in. So
Okay.
we're good to go. But look, we can listen. We could always take the time. Whatever's open, hopefully, we get blessed and we can get you down here. We can make things happen.
Absolutely, and you know, I really think we'll get you in here. Just you tell me, leave me a message when like a good date or time, and we'll do it in September. Just put a time demand, and I'll be thinking of it. And if not, I'll call you when I'm sitting here doing all my other stuff like you late at night. Hey man, I see you online, and I'm glad of it. But hey, it's always a pleasure. And people, if you're going to record in New Jersey, call him. Check it out. Bulletproof Music, Hazlitt, New Jersey. Excellent place, excellent people, and you get John. I mean, look at the guy. I'm Neil from Live with Neve. We have an exciting connection for our veterans, country music fans, and there is something for everyone. Gone Country Hats at GoneCountryHats.com. That's right, we've partnered with Gone Country Hats at GoneCountryHats.com. See you soon.
Five, four, three, two, one.